Is it worth getting excited about Samsung's Galaxy S10? And what should we expect from 5G at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona? Vertical Hold is proudly sponsored by Netcom, taking Australian technology to the global market. Welcome to Vertical Hold, Behind the Tech News, where we talk to Australia's leading technology journalists to get the stories behind the news of the week. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm joined as always by Alex Kidman, the hardest working man in podcasting, except this week Alex is getting ready to cover all the action from Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. He hasn't actually jumped on a plane to Spain this year, but he is working Barcelona hours in order to run live coverage. He's brushing up on his Española, staying up half the night eating tapas, and taking a well-earned siesta during the day. We'll hear from Alex later in the show. He's firing up the Vertical Hold satellite at great expense to the management and chatting with longtime friend of the show and News Corp national tech editor Jen Dudley-Nicholson. Jen is on the ground in San Francisco to get hands-on with Samsung's new Galaxy S10. But first up, we've got a Mobile World Congress preview. I'm chatting with Els Bart, Director of Marketing and Communications with our podcast sponsor Netcom, about what the networking giant is expecting to see on show in Barcelona in the coming week. Els, welcome to Vertical Hold.
Thanks, Adam. Glad to be here.
So you're heading across to Barcelona for Mobile World Congress. All eyes are obviously on 5G. What kind of announcements do you think we'll see in Barcelona?
So we'll see a lot about 5G and the new applications and the exciting things that 5G can bring. And we absolutely expect that as one of the first use cases of 5G, fixed wireless is going to have a major impact and a lot of attention. And we're actually launching our new self-install technology at the show.
So what kind of a gap do you think there'll be between the first fixed wireless rollouts and the first handset rollouts?
Well, we believe that fixed wireless is the first use case because of the technical constraints, and I don't want to bore you with all the details, but fixed wireless is definitely going to be the first use case that is going to get 5G up and running. So this is really technology or network topology that operators are going to leverage to expand their footprint, offer fixed broadband services in wider areas or in areas where there's a really strong need for competition. And by rolling out a 5G network and with the additional capabilities that 5G will bring, they can actually offer these fixed broadband services and high-speed services to the home where it's not economical to run fiber, for example. So we definitely see that that is going to be one of the first use cases. The mobile phones are definitely going to follow there as well, but there's a lot of insecurity and uncertainty around the millimeter wave specs and how that's actually gonna work. And with a mobile phone that moves around, it's gonna be a bit more tricky than in fixed wireless.
Are you seeing interest in fixed wireless 5G from different countries around the world? And does it depend on whether they're using the 3 gigahertz bands first like we are, or whether they're using the millimeter wave bands first like they are in the US?
Yeah, absolutely. We see interest everywhere around the world. It's one of these things that just opens up a lot of opportunity and a lot of capabilities. There's definitely, like you said, here in Australia, we've already have a lot of experience with fixed wireless just in general, in the rural areas with 4G, which is also in the mid-band kind of range. So there's a lot of experience there. We know that that's going to work. So there's a bit more confidence and a lot less risk, so to speak, to roll out in those kind of frequencies. So we actually think that it's always going to be a combination of both mid-band and millimeter wave. And the millimeter wave is more going to be used for additional bandwidth, additional capabilities, while the mid-band will give you a more reliable connection and more sustained speeds. So in that sense, yeah, there's definitely a lot of interest everywhere around the world, and everyone is still kind of trying to figure out how that combination is going to work and what the frequencies are exactly that they should use to offer this service.
And what do you see the fixed wireless take-up looking like in Australia? We've already seen fixed wireless as part of the NBN. How do you think that 5G fixed wireless can fit alongside that?
Yeah, so fixed wireless, and it's not something you only see in Australia, really. It allows mobile operators in particular to get more return on their investment of the spectrum they buy for the mobile network. So it's actually quite normal to see that mobile operators are trying to leverage that for additional services. As you said, we've already seen a lot of the operators here announce plans that they have to launch these services, and it's really just an alternative and another way to offer fixed broadband services in a reliable way.
But I would assume that fixed wireless would never be in a position to take the bulk of the load. You're not going to see more fixed wireless than fiber, for example.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. It's always a set of things, and as we have seen, with the NBN, they have this multi-technology mix, right? So it's one of those things where it depends on the business case. It's very dependent on where you are, what your target market is, what the competition is in that area, and then like you said, like with fixed wireless, I mean, there's a certain cost associated to it to make sure that you do have a true fixed broadband service. So it's not that you can just start putting out mobile phones and put them as hotspots in people's homes. There's a little bit more to that. So you really have to have a reliable connection. So doing that at full scale, the business case always has to be compared, and in the end, the end goal for everyone is still to have fiber to the home. This is just more an alternative way to bring high-speed broadband services to the home.
So when I've looked at NBN fixed wireless connections, they've typically been something with an aerial on the roof. So it's not something you could just do yourself. But I know that Netcom has launched a 5G fixed wireless self-install kit. How does that work?
Yeah, that's correct. So what we've seen traditionally, and NBN is actually the perfect example for that, with 4G and in rural areas. So fixed wireless was mostly a play in those areas, connecting 100% of the population, fast distances, people that are really, really remote. So what happened there is that you want to be able to cover a large area with one base station, which means that because you don't want to have base stations everywhere. So you really need high gain antennas, long reach antennas, the best possible line of sight between the home antenna and your base station to actually be successful and to make it economic to have fixed wireless services. So that's where, traditionally, like you said, we had these outdoor antennas, professional installation to get the best possible link. The thing is that, and talking to operators globally as well, if you think about 5G fixed wireless, this is really a play that is going to go to suburban and urban as well. Because now we have more spectrum, so by having more spectrum, you have more bandwidth, which means that you put less strain on the mobile bandwidth users. The challenge there is that if you need to send a professional installer to every home, that is really going to make the business case quite tough. And we realized that from our experience on the rural areas and the rural deployments, that for 5G, that's just not going to cut it. So we absolutely need to have a self-install solution so that the business case improves, that you can have a faster service turn-up rate, and you can connect more users. So what we've done basically is we use the experience we have in the professional installation and use, because where we also have tools for the professional installers to use so they can actually optimize the connection. So we use those tools and made them in a more simple way so that end users can use it themselves. So it's basically an application on the end user phone, and it's a very easy to use walkthrough of the different steps that the end user needs to take to make sure that they still optimize the connection, because there's a lot dependent on like where you install your fixed wireless device. And you know it from your phone. If you're on one side of the house, you might not have a good connection. If you move around, you might have a bit of better connection. So our self-install technology really guides the end user into trying to find the best possible location in the home. So they do have the best possible connection, but they don't have to sit around and wait for a technician to show up to install the device.
And does the device have an external aerial that you stick on a window or something, or is it a fully self-contained unit?
So we have different options. And also here, because we realize that it's going to be very dependent on the network. The smaller the cells and the closer you are to the base station, the more likely you're going to be to have a really good signal in your home. And then we actually do have now devices available that are in-house, so there's no external antennas at all. They provide Wi-Fi connectivity from the same device and connect to the network. We also have window mount devices, which are also indoor, but they're already a bit on the side of your house, so they provide a better connection. But then, in situations where you're a bit further away from the base station or where the cell sizes are bigger, there we absolutely suggest to have outdoor antennas, which could be wall mount or the traditional roof mount.
So for now, most of the talk about 5G is about your fixed wireless, and then the handsets will come. But really, the big picture about 5G, people are talking more about Internet of Things, connected cars. What broader impact do you see 5G having over the next, we'll say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, and that's actually where I personally believe that 5G, that's what almost 5G really means. There's new applications that are going to become available. There's IoT applications that are going to change everyone's life, right? There's a lot of talk around it. It's all very exciting. We're obviously also in the machine-to-machine or industrial IoT space. So it's definitely going to increase. I think it's already starting. Also there's a lot happening already on 4G. What 5G is going to bring there is a lower latency, lower bandwidth type of applications, where you got a lot of sensors and connections that are actually not that interested in higher speeds, where traditionally mobile networks kind of focused on higher speeds, more bandwidth for the mobile applications. But all these sensors don't really need that much bandwidth. They really need lower latencies and very low power consumption, because you really want to keep them out in the field as long as you can. So that's really where 5G is going to come in. There's a new standards made for that, and everyone's kind of trialing it out, and it's very exciting to see what the first application is going to be.
Well, for all the different potential applications, what's the one that excites you the most, the biggest possibility you think to do with 5G?
Oh, that's a good question. Say everyone talks about connected cars because that's such a visual thing, and everyone kind of dreams of just being able to drive a car without having to steer it themselves. I think that one is a tricky one. I think you'll see it more in the more concrete applications like bus systems that get connected, parking. Automatic parking systems where you get signage through the city around how many parking is available. More like those smaller type of applications that we're already kind of seeing. I think the most exciting one would definitely be the connected cars, if you ask me personally.
Oh, well, it'll be interesting to see what they have on show in Barcelona next week and what they have on show in the years to come. Els, thanks very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, it's smartphone releasing season, and Samsung's just held its Galaxy Unpacked event in San Francisco, which is where I'm not, which means it's once again time to crank up the trusty old vertical hold satellite and head over to San Francisco, where I should be able to get in touch with Jennifer Dudley-Nicholson from News Limited. Jen, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Just coming through now, Alex.
The satellite is working. Fantastic. One of these days I'll get that thing updated to 5G. Now, you've been at the launch, and Samsung kind of came out firing on all cylinders, surprisingly announcing the Galaxy Fold as the first thing as its launch.
Oh, yeah. We're not waiting around for any business about one more thing. Like, it's the one thing. Everybody's come to see it, and fine, we're going to show it to you right up front.
And it's an interesting device. I mean, we sort of knew what it was going to look like because they showed it off, I think it was last November at their developers conference. But they actually said quite a lot about it, which surprised me. They didn't really hold back a lot of details about this device, did they?
No, and I think they really needed to because, I mean, apparently it's going to be out in some places on April 26th. So we're not talking about an awful long time away. And also the competitors are coming. So we've got Mobile World Congress is just a week away. We're expecting to see something from Huawei, maybe something from another Chinese manufacturer that folds and bends and does something spectacular with a hinge. So this is where really Samsung had to prove that they were real about it because, I mean, apart from last year when we saw a bit of a look at it, we've also seen Samsung talking about flexible phones before, but what we haven't seen is an actual flexible phone.
Now, speaking of seeing it, has Samsung, graced you in its presence? Have you had a chance to flip it and bend it and fold it and break it?
Here's the thing. I really wish I had. I was in the same room as it when DJ Ko pulled it out of his pocket. I can say that much. I was definitely watching when that happened. I was watching the screen with all the pictures. As you know yourself, when after some of these big launches, they have a bit of an area up to the side where the media and even analysts can go and they can have hands-on with the product and they can put their fingerprints all over them. We walked into there and said, "Where's the Galaxy Fold?" And they said, "Yeah, sorry, no." So there was no Galaxy Fold to actually put our hands on this year, and we also couldn't touch the 5G model. So they exist. We've been told. We've been shown photos of them. We have copious specs. We've even got some overseas pricing and availability dates. What we don't have is any proof that it actually has been mass-produced and is ready for us to touch and feel.
So we know they basically made the one that they showed off, and maybe I suppose they had a demo model as well. So then let's be generous and say there's probably about half a dozen of them that we know that exist.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have a theory, and this is only a theory. But I found it highly unusual that they wouldn't have, if they did have half a dozen of them, for example, put them in a case and let us photograph them at least, or let us ooh and ah and watch them bend it with a mechanical arm or something. I have a theory that maybe the design isn't totally finalized. Maybe there are some details that they're still working out around cameras and placement of things and screens and shapes and those sorts of things. Because it doesn't seem like they're into mass production or they're ready to commit and show everybody up close what these things actually do.
It was a surprising move as well, partially because of the price of these things. And I guess we should point out that once they come to Australia, it's not likely they're going to cost less than $3,000, but also because it did kind of create this shadow over what they were there to launch, which was the Galaxy S10.
It is really hard to get everybody to look at the Galaxy S10 now, which is actually quite a nice upgrade from the Galaxy S9, I've got to say. But when you're sort of looking at this device that is one thing and then becomes another thing and has all this fancy new software from Google and has a giant screen, to then go and have a look at the S10s, you're like, oh yeah, but that's back in my real life. What I'm talking about is the one where I ride hoverboards around and I'm all fancy and Michael J. Fox in the very far future. So yeah, that was a bit tricky, and I think it's been made a little bit trickier this year by the fact that there are so many different versions of the S10 as well.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I find it hard to get excited about the S10e for much the same reason, actually, that I found it hard to get excited about the phone it's very obviously targeting, which is the Apple iPhone XR. It's the low cost but still premium model, and I'm struggling to work out who's going to buy one of those. The S10 and especially the S10 Plus, I can get excited about those, but the poor little E, I don't see it. Is there something I'm missing?
Well, I think that Samsung is actually responding to criticism here because the price of smartphones went up so much last year. So we did get these fancy, amazing screens, but we had to pay a lot for them. So the price has, smashed through the $2,000 barrier. Samsung's even done that now. Apple did it first. Now we've got the S10e. What it really does is it comes in at the same entry price as the S9 did last year. So this is Samsung's way of saying you can still get one of these smartphones. You can still afford one with the money that you paid last year, and it'll be a bit better than last year. It just won't be top of the range. So I think this is them saying, look, you can have it. You've just got to make some compromises. And some people, not me, but some people actually like smaller screen phones. And this one isn't small by any means, but it's smaller. And so for that reason, I think there is a market for it. And the fact that it comes in a natty yellow may please some people too.
Yeah, although I noted that natty yellow is not a colour we're going to see here in Australia, where we're getting a very limited little colour palette, which is not actually a new thing for any phone manufacturer, where typically we're lucky to get anything but the black model, in fact.
It is very sad, though.
Yeah, the other problem I guess I have with the E is you mentioned that relatively lower price. This is still a premium price phone, but to my way of thinking, there's not such a huge chunk between that and the entry model S10, which has a whole bunch of those other additional features, better cameras, that fingerprint sensor and stuff like that. Now, I'm presuming you've had some hands-on time with an S10 or an S10 Plus, though.
I have, yeah. So I've played with all of the S10 Plus, the S10, and the S10e. To be honest, side by side, they're quite similar. Obviously, you've got to turn them over and have a look at the camera on them. It's interesting that it's with the S10 Plus, you can get the very top of the line comes in ceramic, which looks really pretty. It looks a little bit cookware-y, but in a way that you think that maybe you won't scratch it, which is nice. But yeah, there are differences in the camera which you really have to look for. And I've got to say, I was really impressed with the ultrasonic fingerprint. I had a bit of a go and put a lock on a test phone, which nobody saw me do, so it was fine. And I took it off afterwards. But it's really easy to unlock your phone using this fingerprint sensor that's built into the screen of the phone. And I thought that's something that we've talked about for a while now. Huawei's brought out their version of it. I thought this was very efficient and a really effective way to get inside the phone. And it comes with a nice little animated ripple, which is quite cute.
The animated ripple is something I think most of them do, but I wouldn't apply the word efficient the way Huawei or indeed Oppo do theirs, because this is ultrasonic. So Samsung's claim is it does like a 3D image of your thumb when you're pressing down on it, not just a straight up kind of optical picture.
Yes, that's right. And so it uses sound waves and those sorts of things. I mean, it's hard to test the accuracy of these things, but so far, when I've been using it, and I do have a phone to test at the moment that I've just been playing with this afternoon, I've registered my fingerprints with it, and it's really efficient. I mean, even if you can just push down on the screen in that one particular point to turn the phone on and to unlock it, which makes it super efficient, and it's really quick to open as well, which really impressed me because some of these things can go desperately wrong. I know that Samsung has had a while to put it together, but I think it makes a big difference from what they had before, which was reaching around the back of the phone, which can work in some cases, but they kept putting the fingerprint sensor right beside the camera, which is not ideal for anybody.
No, their fingerprint sensor placement of recent years has been pretty poor. Let's be honest here. Now I know you're a lady who loves your cameras, and Samsung's got form here, but they've had a lot of challenges from everyone from Apple to Huawei to Oppo to others in terms of being the premium camera brand. What's your take on how good that S10 or S10 Plus camera setup is?
I think with all mobile phones, you're going to be limited by the size of the sensor. As you know, I carry around a giant camera. I have been pretty impressed with the versatility of this so far. Samsung can, and I've got to test this properly, Samsung can tend to sort of bump up the ISO so that, yes, you can take photos of night, but they look like it's snowing. So I'm keen to test that part of it. But what I have been able to test is this difference between switching between like a very wide angle, like a GoPro style, and a regular angle and a telephoto. So to be able to switch between that quite quickly and easily has been great. And I think so far I've been quite impressed with the improvements that they've made, even on just the S10 Plus, not going into sort of the S10 5G, but the improvements that they've made in relation to portrait mode. Or as they call it, live photo. And this idea that you can recreate having a large aperture and the effect of a DSLR. I think it's more efficient in this phone. You can also put some interesting sort of effects on it so that it looks like you've zoomed in, or it looks like the background's moving, and that's quite cute. You're not going to be able to use that every day because that would just be silly and everyone would get very annoyed. But it's nice to have. I think the real difference is just having those three lenses available to you.
Yeah, if I'm LG, I'm probably a little bit upset because they've been pushing the idea of ultra wide lenses for years now, and nobody seemed to pay any attention.
They did it quite well too, although they didn't have the three. It's nice to be able to go sort of small, regular, large. So yes, LG did do it first though, and they deserve a big high five and maybe a redesign for their phones.
Now, you mentioned it before, and you mentioned they wouldn't let you have a play, but the phone I think I'm most excited about from this lineup is not, in fact, the Galaxy Fold. It's the Galaxy S10 5G, partly because it's 5G, but also partly because it is, I'm not exactly sure why it isn't the Galaxy S10 Plus 5G, because it's the S10 Plus on steroids, isn't it?
Yeah, I found this really fascinating myself. It goes one step further. So you really have to pay attention to what phone you're buying in this lineup because everything has a little bit different about it. There's 5 different phones, and even if you assume like the S10 Plus is the same as the S10 5G, you're going to be wrong. So this has an extra camera in it. I'm told the time of flight camera that goes on the back of it to make it 4 out the back actually does things like it registers the speed of light, which sounds very fancy, but essentially it's measuring distance and so it's giving you better accuracy in terms of focus and in terms of that live photo that we talked about earlier. That'll be really interesting for me to see. I know it's got a bigger battery. I'm assuming it needs one because of 5G, or maybe they just assume that you'll be downloading more. I'm definitely keen to see it. Also, it has a 6.7-inch screen, and I'm a fan of big phones, so bring it.
Yeah, although it also has some weird little limitations that they don't talk about so much. It's single SIM where the rest of the S10 family can be dual SIM, and there's no storage expansion either.
No, which is interesting, and I don't know, like the Telstra deal, for example, that people may have come across already. So Telstra have done an interesting deal with Samsung, which I'm sort of attributing to kind of like a tour CD, you know, when your favourite band comes out and they bring out a tour album, but you've already bought the regular album. So Telstra's idea was that if you buy on a contract, on a 24-month contract it has to be, the S10 Plus, they will upgrade that to the 5G model when it comes out if you take them up within this 3-week window, which I find really interesting. But yeah, in terms of the two phones, there's also one at the top of the range, which is a 1 terabyte version. You're not going to be able to get that through this plan. So if you decide to get the S10 Plus in the 1 terabyte edition, you're going to have to purchase that from a Samsung store outright, and you're going to have to sell it on eBay if you decide later, actually, I should have got the 5G model.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's doing that 1 terabyte model, and maybe that's just to keep the plans within a kind of sane time frame, because that is the really expensive model, still eclipsed by the XS Max, admittedly, but only just.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see what the prices of all of them are too, because we don't know the absolute price of the 5G model or the Fold yet.
Yeah, we can guess it. We can at least guess at the Fold price because they've said the entry level US pricing, so it ends up being, I think it's about $2,800, but that may not have tax. So I think we can fairly confidently say you won't have much change out of $3,000 for one of those.
Definitely not. And also, we don't know if that's the base model and if there's another model after that. So, I mean, potentially it could be 3.5, rising into the almost $4,000.
I guess one way to look at that, though, is that you're getting a premium phone and you're getting a premium tablet, and you combine the cost of those two together, and it's perhaps a little bit more reasonable in the premium phone buyer's mind, but still very, very expensive.
Absolutely. And if you're going to do that and you're in the market for 2 devices, then it's a really good time. However, I think if you are in the market and you're thinking about buying something that costs that much money, you really need to be able to see it. And I think a lot of people will be keen to see these in stores and see these actually demonstrated in front of themselves before they can be confident enough to shell out that much money for them.
And finally, Samsung's kind of one more thing was a little bit unusual in that it was a range of wearables that it had leaked itself the week before through its own wearables app.
Look, that is unusual, but I'm going to say there have been a lot of leaks this year. So, I mean, almost everything has been previewed in some way. Not completely everything, but almost everything. The wearables were quite nice, though. They're not top of the range. Like the smartphones we're talking about are flagship smartphones. The headphones are really good and a really nice improvement. They're smaller. But in terms of the watches, there's an active one and there's a replacement for the Gear Fit, essentially. So they're both not high-end smartwatches, and maybe there just wasn't enough room to make a big enough deal of them this year because, my goodness, there's 5 phones to be talking about.
It was certainly a busy, busy morning. I think that covers everything that they talked about, and they talked about everything at considerable length. I should let you get back to enjoying the sights, sounds, and seals of San Francisco. Thank you so much for your time, Jen.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that just about wraps up another episode of Vertical Hold. As always, we'd love to get your feedback on the show. What do you think's going to happen with 5G? Are you excited about the new Samsung gear? Feel free to leave a comment via Twitter or the Vertical Hold Facebook page. Thanks again to Els from Netcom for joining us to talk 5G, and for Jen for joining us all the way from San Fran to talk Samsung gear. Thanks also everyone for listening. We're on a big push this year to reach more listeners, so it helps if you can jump on your podcasting platform of choice, leave us a great review, and tell your friends to help spread the word. Vertical Hold is proudly sponsored by Netcom, taking Australian technology to the global market.